Visually, from our point of view, it will seem like GoRuck is the title sponsor, but they are not the title sponsor.
They always have cool demos. They do stuff like late at night under the lights for the audience. It's fun. You're right there on the waterfront. There's a cool vibe to it.
That I keep thinking that there's a cap, and there just doesn't seem to be a cap. And because of that, he becomes very exciting to watch. He looks like he's at some point going to reach the cap, and then he just never does.
It is 2024, maybe the strongest year in human history, at least if we have something to say about it. And we are back with Strength Weekly, the first brand new episode bringing you news from around the barbell game. I am one of your hosts, David Thomas Tao. I am joined by the intrepid, the incomparable, the very kind Phil Bleckman. Let's get to today's run of show. We got 4 big stories coming to you live. It's not live. We actually record this ahead of time. The first is we start to answer how strong are CrossFitters exactly, because 2-time CrossFit Games champion Justin Medeiros entered a powerlifting competition, totaled over 1,400 pounds. Segment number 2, GoRuck is named the official apparel and footwear partner of CrossFit and becomes the biggest partner for the new CrossFit Games season, but is not a title sponsor, meaning there will be no title sponsor for the 2024 CrossFit Games. We break that down. Well, this one is actually from 2023, the best weightlifters of 2023. We highlight a few of those. And finally, Wodapalooza, the first big strength competition of the year's calendar, is kicking off this weekend. We bring you a little preview because so we're bringing you all the goodness there. Phil, how are you feeling in 2024, and are you recovered from the holidays?
I don't know if there's any amount of time in 2024 to recover from the holidays and the damage that I did to my body, but we're going to give it a go. We're going to give it a go, David.
Well, I put on some kilograms of mass over the holidays. I wouldn't call it lean mass, but you know what? That's for you to judge and for me to find out. All right, Phil, let's dive into it. This one happened a few weeks ago, but a lot of folks missed it for the holidays. Justin Medeiros, a 2-time CrossFit Games champion, and he of the best mullet in sports. There, I said it, the best mullet in all sports, not just strength sports, entered a powerlifting competition and did pretty darn well as a 90-kilo lifter. Phil, how did Justin do?
Justin competed in the 90-kilogram class, like you said, at 2023 USAPL Holiday Hoist, which is a fun name. That was right before the holidays on December 16th. And he went 8 for 9 in his first performance. He got a silver medal overall. He hit 232.5 kilograms or 512.5 pounds in his squat, pretty big squat. He's bench pressed 137.5 kilograms. That's breaking the 300-pound barrier. And he deadlifted 272.5 kilograms. That is also breaking the 600-pound mark. So it's clear that he had these goals in mind, it seems like, because his final lifts were breaking these particular milestones. We've seen a trajectory from Justin that he's gotten stronger and stronger over the last couple of years. In his early time in CrossFit at the elite level, it was clear that his weak point was the barbell game. He was falling behind guys like Adler and Vellner. Like, those guys are just really, really powerful with barbells in their hands. And we've seen him get much, much, much stronger in that. And this performance here, where he's focused entirely on strength, really shows how far he's come and where we can expect him to go come the 2024 season kicking off with the Open in February.
I think that Medeiros has definitely upped his strength since we saw him come on the scene as a relatively young competitor, but he's still not, I'd call, one of the 5 strongest individual CrossFit Games competitors. There are many names I would put above him as far as limit strength. Now, he's a 2-time champ. Let's just note he's great at what he does, but I still wouldn't say that his limit strength is in that very, very, very top tier. So the fact that he's hitting these numbers indicates, the base level of strength for the top CrossFit Games competitors has definitely gone up. We've seen that in Olympic lifting as well. We talked about that a few episodes ago. It's kind of cool to see that in powerlifting, because they got to lift a standard. They got to hit depth on the squat. They can't hitch on the deadlift. It's good to see competition standards actually be upheld and see how CrossFitters do in that environment. Let's keep it in CrossFit. That was kind of a weird meld of powerlifting and CrossFit. Let's go specifically back to CrossFit. GoRuck has stepped in and is now the biggest sponsor, or the, I guess, headlining, you could call it, sponsor of the CrossFit Games, but there is not like a branded CrossFit Games anymore. Phil, did this one surprise you?
It did, in that there's a lot of nuance to it. So GoRuck has named the official apparel and footwear partner. That's what they are officially. But in terms of what we're told to expect of how it's going to look at the actual games themselves, visually, from our point of view, it will seem like GoRuck is the title sponsor, but they are not the title sponsor.
So it's not the Go Ruck CrossFit Games. It's just
Right.
the CrossFit Games, but they're going to have the biggest presence there, especially if you're on the ground
Yes.
during the games.
For all intents and purposes, on our side and from a spectator's point of view side, we should be looking at Go Ruck as the new Noble in that sense, but they are not the official title sponsor, if that means anything for people out there.
And Go Ruck is known for their bags, their rucksacks, right? That's what they're best known for. That was kind of their first product line. But they're now the apparel and footwear line. They're actually going to be launching, it seems like, a new line of CrossFit focused footwear. You know, I do think that this is smart for Go Ruck to kind of broaden their appeal and like show folks, hey, we have other products, because in my mind, rucksacks, Go Ruck rucksacks. So it's an interesting move, you know, locking up the footwear and apparel. That's always been the biggest sponsor of the CrossFit Games ever since the Reebok days, right? Ever since that 10-year contract with Reebok. What's interesting to me is that if you go back in time, if you dial back the clock 8 or 9 years ago, a lot of folks thought that the successor to that was going to be Nike. I kind of thought that Nike was going to come in. I speculated that Nike was going to come in and take the title sponsorship. And I really thought that when they signed Matt Fraser, probably 8 years ago, he was the hot athlete on the scene. They released the Nike Metcon, right? Which was going specifically, it seemed like toward the crowd that the Reebok Nano was marketed to. And it didn't pan out. CrossFit changed ownership. The pandemic hit. Like, it just seemed like these mega established public company brands moved away from wanting to become the title sponsor for the CrossFit Games. So definitely a different series of developments than I anticipated. But again, that's just my personal speculation.
We both were aligned on Matt Fraser being where it was going to lean towards, because he was the successor to Froning. But when he came out saying that between workouts he would crush Snickers bars and then lie to his competitors and say that they were like, oh, yeah, no, the protein bars. But he was like, I just need the calories. I need the carbs to like get through these workouts and do it effectively. Bro, if that happened and Snickers didn't become the title sponsor, if it wasn't the Snickers CrossFit Game, I mean, my head was like, Snickers is going to sponsor this thing.
I mean, if you go far back in the archives, some of the early CrossFit Games, I forget which year, so don't hold a candle to my feet on this, but I forget which year. It was like 2008, maybe. Panda Express was an early sponsor of the early CrossFit Games when they were at the ranch, at Castro's Family Ranch.
So awesome.
So, you know, and then Monster Energy. That
was last year.
Yeah, 2021, that was the first like post-pandemic when I was there. Monster had a whole tent set up.
They had a whole tent, and people were like getting aggro about it. People were like, "Oh, I can't believe Monster. It's like, you know, it's like sugar and stuff, and it's not good." And it's like, dude, Fraser was touting that he was crushing Snickers mid-games.
I just want to be clear, neither Monster nor Snickers are sponsoring this show. If either of those brands would like to sponsor the show, our DMs are very open.
I will casually crush so many Snickers on this cast. Strength Weekly brought to you by Snickers.
I do feel a mite peckish after these recordings, so I could use a little. Yeah, okay. Favorite candy bar, Phil.
It's Snickers. It's legitimately actually Snickers.
Have you ever had the Snickers ice cream bars?
Yes.
Next level.
They are like, dude. If you want like a nice transition to that, just put your Snickers in the fridge. Just eat your actual Snickers bars cold.
But the Snickers ice cream bars they hit different from.
Oh yeah, it's peanut butter ice cream because it's peanut butter ice cream, David.
Good. Oh my.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have Snickers are not sponsoring this, but hey, shout out! Like we are
We're ready, available. Though. Our bodies are ready.
Let's move to another sport where I have seen athletes crush candy bars in the warm up area, and that's weightlifting. Because BarBend's own Jake Dixon's awesome, and he is one of the smartest folks in the weightlifting space. He wrote an article about the 10 top weightlifters of 2023, which is important because 2024 is an Olympic year. We got the Paris Olympic Games coming up this summer. Weightlifting is a sport. I mean, by the skin of its teeth, honestly. Weightlifting is a sport. It was not kicked out of the Olympic program. It will be a sport here, and it will be a sport in 2028. Please read that article at the link in the description below. That's actually going to be really important because, I think it's one of the best weightlifting articles we've published in quite some time. A lot of overlooked performances. Of that list, Phil, before we get into these 4 that we're going to highlight, who was your favorite to watch in 2023 of the 10 names that Jake Dixon put on that list?
I feel like after watching Hampton Morris over the last handful of years, it just seems like the dude doesn't have a limit. Like, I keep thinking like at some point he'll like reach his threshold and be like, okay, this is where he stands at the world level. And then he just keeps breaking it. Now I get it. He's still a teenager. He has a lot of room to grow. But at the same time, he's been doing it since he was 16 that I keep thinking that there's a cap, and there just doesn't seem to be a cap. And because of that, he becomes very exciting to watch because he looks like he's at some point going to reach the cap, and then he just never does. And it's fantastic.
19 years old. I'm going to read his kind of tale of the tape for 2023. He got second at a IWF Grand Prix. He got first at the Pan American Championships. He bombed out of the World Weightlifting Championships, but hold that thought because there's a little bit of a catch there. He got second at the Junior World Championships. He got fifth at another IWF Grand Prix. Let's talk about the World Championships where he bombed out, did not make a snatch in the men's 61 kilo A group. But he won the clean and jerks with a 168 kilogram lift, which beat the reigning Olympic champion Li Fabin of China. No American male had won a gold medal at the Senior World Championships in 51 years. 19-year-old Hampton Morris breaking that streak. So it was like a shining ray of sunlight after a bomb out, and shows it like, oh, he can go toe to on the clean and jerks. Oh, he can go. He can go. You want to go? You want to go? Let's take this out back and clean and jerk. Hampton Morris, pretty awesome accomplishment there.
The fact that on the world level, he is at high end of the clean and jerk, and he's not even 20 years old yet. I know we've talked about young lifters before, but like, dude, when I was 18, I could barely crush 2 Snickers in a row. And this dude is breaking clean and jerk world records. So,
dude, he put so many Snickers overhead.
Dude, how many Snickers is 168 kilograms? Like, it's so many. It's so many Snickers.
It's got to be thousands of Snickers. It's got to be. It's got to be.
It's got to be.
How many Snickers per kilogram? We got to do that conversion. We'll get a scale. All right. The next one person we want to highlight isn't a person. It's a whole team. Team North Korea had a 4-year hiatus, COVID-related, doping-related. Like, there's a lot of reasons that we haven't seen Team North Korea for a while. But they came back to international competition. At the Asian Games, they won more medals than any other country, and their women set 5 world records at an IWF Grand Prix, the second one of the year. And you're looking at this team like, oh my God, this is the best weightlifting team in the world, or it could be among the best weightlifting teams in the world. Their athletes are going to kill it and sweep up in Paris. But guess what? They're not going to sweep up in Paris because they didn't qualify as a team for Paris. And there are, again, reasons for that. Are they compliant with doping controls? Yada, yada, yada. There's a lot there. But, they're basically going to have the best weightlifting team in the world that we're not going to see at the Paris Olympics, which is interesting.
I don't think that there's any doubt that we're going to see China continue its dominance in 2024. I doubt that will fade even remotely at all come 2028. So, we do have to wait, but like, it's kind of like everybody's really only vying for the silver. So if like a new team can actually train and get to the point where they could maybe contend with China, that would be probably actually definitely very exciting for the sport.
Well, North Korea could not only contend, but at the Olympic level, they don't give out team medals. Like they've shown, especially on the women's side, they can contend and beat China, right, in some of these categories. So pretty darn interesting. The last thing we want to highlight is Rahmat Irwin Abdullah of Indonesia, who I think is maybe pound for pound the most exciting lifter to watch, because this is a lifter who not only dominates and does well across, he's actually bounced between weight classes. He's competed as both a 73 and an undersized 81 in 2023 and did well in both categories at the international level. But his showmanship, I think, is unparalleled in today's weightlifting world. He flexes. Like, dude hits his last lift and gets on stage. He's doing like front double biceps. He's doing like side chest and biceps poses. He's like treating that like a pose down after his final clean and jerks. And I'm sure it annoys some officials, but as a weightlifting spectator, I love to see it. Dude showing off the guns, like bringing the gun show after his lifts and clearly having fun with it. He is a medal contender in Paris, in my mind, like very much a medal contender, and just super exciting to watch. You know, like I just love every time he's on stage, especially after his final lifts. If he makes them, I'm expecting some fireworks. And
he's being a medal contender in what I would argue is the two most difficult category for the men.
Yeah.
The 73s and the 81s are, I mean, both are stacked down the entire A group. So Shizi Yang, who's been dominant. I mean, I cover him constantly because he has been dominant at 73. But like being able to compete at 73 and be in podium contention, that alone makes you exciting. And then the fact that this guy's got showmanship on top of that makes it even more so.
Let's get to our fourth and final news story to kick off the new year, because the first major competition in the strength sports calendar is Wodapalooza in Miami. Welcome to Miami. Wodapalooza is for the CrossFit community. There have been times when it is officially tied to CrossFit. There have been times when it's not officially tied to CrossFit. But let's be honest, this is where the first competition of the year where we see the top CrossFit athletes show up and throw down as both individuals and teams. It's also one of the more exciting team events in the calendar because we see a lot of people who will compete individually during the year, during the regular CrossFit Games season. They'll actually compete on teams in Wodapalooza. Wodapalooza is known for always having swim events. You're right there on the waterfront in Miami. It's gorgeous. It's fun. I went to Wodapalooza for the first time in 2014. I think it was either 2013 or 2014. It's a hoot and a holler. It is a riot down there. And you want to have a good time in Miami in January. Wodapalooza right on the waterfront is a place to be. And Phil, right before we start recording today, they released the rosters, correct? What stood out to you as far as the rosters?
They sure did. So competing on the men's side as an individual, we're going to get to see Guy Medeiros return to competition. He was absent at the games. He didn't qualify. He missed in the semifinals, but he is always a blast to watch, and he'll be back. He's representing Brazil, obviously. We're going to see Roman Krenikov. He's still competing as an individual. He'll be here. Sam Quant is going to be back. Spencer Panchik. A bunch of big names that do compete as individuals on the elite side will still be there. Colton Mertens, he usually does well at Wodapalooza. Alexandra Caron. All the names that you would expect. They will be here. If they're not on there, they're likely competing on teams. On the women's side, some standouts. You have Caroline Stanley. She'll be here. You have Emily DeRoy. She'll be back. Emily Rolfe will be back. Emma Carey. She's competing as an individual. Gabriela Magala. She's competing as an individual. So there is a lot of action to be had. And if you actually get a chance to either watch it live streamed or actually be present, one of the most fun events to watch at Wodapalooza is the chipper that they always do on the water. And it is a blast to watch. A, because chippers are exciting, but B, the aesthetic around that event is just, it's cool. It's very, very cool. For the first time in 2024, there's going to be a second Wodapalooza later in September. There is Wodapalooza SoCal. They're going to California, and they're going to have a Wodapalooza event in Huntington Beach. So that's scheduled for September 20th through the 22nd. As exciting as Miami will be, you'll get a second dose of it for the first time in 2024. So there you go.
It's pretty exciting. And I will say the energy at Wodapalooza is unique in this space. They always have cool demos. They do stuff like late at night under the lights for the audience. You know, they've done like weightlifting demos, powerlifting demos. It's fun. You're right there on the waterfront. There's a cool vibe to it. Look, the September one, post CrossFit Games season. If I were some CrossFit Games athletes, like, even if I weren't wanting to compete and I wanted to like take, a couple months off or just to like chill, I just go there as a spectator and have a ton of fun, right? Like you eat well. If you want to imbibe, it's the option. You're in Miami or even SoCal. I'm not as familiar with Huntington Beach. Good times.
For scheduling purposes, what that will look like, it will be post CrossFit Games, but pre-Rogue Invitational.
It is interesting. It is interesting. Like back to back to back, there's like a triplet of these big competitions to kind of like end the summer, head into fall. That is all we got today, folks. We'll be back next week with even more Strength Weekly. I'm David Thomas Tao. Who are you? Who have I been talking to for the past whatever minutes?
I'm Phil Bleckman, ready to get sponsored by Snickers. We had a blast talking to you about strength on Strength Weekly this week. Thanks everybody for joining. Go over to BarBend, read all the articles that we talked about. Everything is great. 2024 is going to be awesome.
Woohoo! Leap year!